David, hi.
Hi, Emi. How are you?
Good, good. We had some viewer feedback, and
What did it say?
Mark's out. I'm in.
Okay, well, I'm sure he's shaking in his boots right now, hoping that there's some catastrophic failure on this program today, but let's give it a shot.
Well, for those of you that don't know me, I'm the senior manager of marketing at Mercatus. I spend a lot of time behind the scenes of the videos and blogs and research, but today I'll get some on-screen time with David.
There you go. Well, good luck.
I think I need it. David, I've got a couple of back to the basics questions for you.
Sure.
Um, for those folks, we've been running these reports for how long now?
Since early to mid 2020,
Right.
so a
And,
while.
yeah, we've seen other reports in market, but I'm curious about what's unique about this report.
Well, I think that's a good question, and it's always good to come back to it. I'll start with kind of framing up what was the problem or the issue back then. And even before COVID, it was still an issue. It just wasn't as present or as top of mind with folks. And that is, this is an emerging area of the business. And, visibility into this part of the business we call eGrocery online has been fairly constrained to, traditional data sources. And no fault to those providers. Uh, the ability to get access to the whole picture was really challenging, let alone confounding, their ability to tell the story. So as we went back and forth and said, how can we get a better understanding for how customers are engaging online, who's shopping online, where are they shopping online, how much are they spending, how often are they doing it? And we came to the realization that really the most effective way to do it was to take a 360 view with the household in the center, right? So we started by building this online panel and using the same survey instrument each month to measure and monitor key behavioral patterns that would help us answer those questions. So it really addressed what we thought was a pressing need, which was understanding the whole ecosystem. The problem that a grocer has is that they can monitor what they measure, which is their store primarily, and then when they go online, it depends on what they're doing online. And especially given the fact that most retailers went online with delivery only at first, they didn't know what was going on with pickup, or they really didn't understand the difference between what we consider delivery in the traditional sense of a full basket of goods delivered in bags or boxes to a person's home versus ship to home, which is completely sealed package or pouch that comes through common or contract carrier. So there was a lot of complexity within the topic that we believed should be clarified and then standardized. And the best way we saw that that was possible, and we believe it's still the case today, is to use really a kind of a consumer centric point of view to get that 360 visibility into how households are shopping online for groceries.
So, David, my second question is that, there are many insights that we get in the report. Month over month, we see the same numbers. Can you point out what you think is the most relevant one or two, maybe even three insights for regional
Yeah,
grocers? Let's say a director or a manager of e-commerce they would want to keep track of.
yeah. I'd say they're similar data points each month. I know they may seem the same. Obviously behaviors evolve over time. They don't radically change, with the exception of what we saw back in March and April of 2020, right? But with that being said, if I were still in retail today, what I would like to be able to know is, where are my blind spots, right? What is it that I don't know? You know, and the report can give that perspective to a retailer, especially a retailer who, again, like I said a minute ago, is maybe only playing in a portion of the online space, right? So believe it or not, there are some grocers today, some large regionals, who still almost predominantly offer only one service method. In this case, it would be home delivery. And we would characterize the US as a delivery first market, but a pickup dominant. And it's been that way for some time. In fact, in 2017, we were telling retailers privately that pickup was where the strategic and economic value was greatest. And for regional grocers, it was where you could build, your best moat to defend your business. So the report provided the evidence to that recommendation. And for those people who didn't have that same visibility, they were kind of often questioning, why is that? And then we went into, for instance, the notion of understanding that there are very strong personal preferences for the way we shop online and how we receive those online orders. And we can see that using a Venn diagram like illustration to show where there's overlap in terms of households that use more than one method. But the fact is, at a very macro level, looking across channels and formats across the country, what was really clear and still is today is, we have about 70% of the users online using a single method, right? It's either ship to home, it's pickup, or it's delivery. And especially for a retailer who's in only delivery, what that means is if you're not in pickup, you're not serving, the largest available or addressable market that you could. And in some cases, you could be missing half of the addressable market if you're only in, let's say, delivery versus pickup, or vice versa. So, that really becomes crystal clear when you get a version of this report, regardless of what month, that helps you interrogate the insights and challenge your own assumptions, right? What's important. So the metrics that we look at change over time within the report in terms of which one takes priority or precedent for us. At first, it was really some of the kind of the basic kind of low-hanging fruit, like I just mentioned, helping retailers understand the value or the importance of being in more of those segments. And someone would say, isn't that just simply becoming more of an omni-channel retailer? And it may be. Omni-channel depends on what your strategy is, and how you look at that could define omni-channel slightly differently. I think, though, when we now start to look at some of the new metrics where we're emerging from COVID, we still have artifacts of COVID affecting the business, and we will still continue to have that probably for another 12 months, believe it or not. But we're starting to see some patterns, and some of the patterns are now eliciting new questions like, what is driving the increased likelihood of a customer who's using mass versus grocery, right? And that's really very topical because we know nearly 1 in 3 households that are actively online buying from grocery stores or regional supermarkets, they're also buying from a mass competitor like Walmart or Target. And if they're having such different experiences, it would benefit us to understand where and why that's happening, how we can learn from that, so we can improve our operations so that we can get our intent rates up to be more comparable to where those rivals are.
And that's just it, being able to compete. For July, what's at least one insight from the report that grocers should take away or think about more closely?
Well, July, once again, is down. So on a month over month basis, if we were looking at sequential trend comparing against prior year, July is the next month in a row. I think it's the third in a row, actually, where we're seeing overall softness in demand, where in this case, overall sales dropped 7%. In this case, it went across all 3 segments, so no one was immune. The hardest hit was delivery. That, again, isn't surprising for us because when we looked at our forecast, we knew that this was going to be a down year. And we believe that the recovery in terms of sales growth would likely occur in 2024, maybe in the first half or mid 2024. And that's because we're still unwinding all the COVID-related supports that we had out there that were really propping up households. And we're seeing households continue to kind of strain under the growing pressures or realities that those supports are going away. We still have other fiscal reports supports, I should say, that are still yet to sunset. So we know that it's only going to get tougher for the consumer in terms of spending. Their purchasing power remains constrained, and this creates more of a search to flight or search to value or flight to value, I should say. And this is what's helping mass right now, in part because of that. But it's also causing customers to now look at the value proposition, which for the last couple of years might have been driven by more of the essential need to get your groceries, and now is being reverted to, it's driven by convenience, right? So when we start to look at that, that just means when trade-offs come between cost and convenience for those households who are trying to stretch the buck, convenience is going to win and cost is going to pay. And that's what's creating a headwind right now for deliveries in terms of a method. And in some ways, what's causing a headwind for the grocery channel or format versus their main rivals in mass is that, the price gaps, regardless of whether we're online or in store, are significant enough that those households that are looking for ways to get more with the same or for less, they're motivated now more than ever. And we can see that in other behaviors that they're displaying today in terms of use of credit cards, the increased use of drawing down savings or 401ks to increase debt levels that we haven't seen before. So we're clearly at a point where the households are now really becoming constrained. We knew the second half would be where the real roughness started, and that's what we're seeing in our numbers.
Yeah, I think that we've been talking a lot lately about the delta of in-store and online pricing. And I'm wondering if you can share some insights and some perspective into Amazon Fresh's move to price online products differently than in-store. You have a report out recently.
Yes, Mercatus does, and we had the pleasure of working on that project, which I think is extremely timely and topical for regional grocers. I think Sylvain did a video blog or a blog, whatever it's called, talking about kind of the realities that regional grocers face. So we won't talk about that. But the conclusion from that, or the implication from those realities, was that regional grocers are in a position to leverage their strengths and take an opportunity to use pricing and think about pricing in a different way to manage their online business. And what Amazon's doing is a little differently. For all the jabs people throw at Amazon for not getting grocery, I would say that a lot of the recommendations that we've been making over the last few years, not taking credit for what Amazon's doing, but many of the things that we're seeing now are reinforcing those recommendations. And one is this bifurcation of pricing online versus in store. And in the case of Amazon, they are pricing online differently than in store. It's not always that it's more expensive, although when we did our market basket analysis, looking at online versus in store specifically for them a couple weeks ago, we did see that the markup online on a weighted average basis was north of 10%. I think it was closer to 13. That varies, obviously, depending on what items go in the cart. But we could look at a category like yogurt, and we focused on a national brand, and we looked at a couple of their sizes, and their 32 ounce offering was at parity online as in store. But if you went to their 5.3 ounce 4-pack, their price online was maybe 20% higher. Now, I could go further and show other examples, and they have some that are extremely high velocity, high household penetration, high order frequency items, right? That have prices online that are nearly double what they are in store. Now, some people would say, how can they do that? Why would they do that? Can they sustain that? Walmart's not going to do that. And I think those are all interesting points. And these are points that I've heard directly from people, either to the report or specifically to our reporting at Brick Meets Click on Amazon Fresh in this area. And, the point we made is, we don't expect Walmart to respond by changing their price strategy. They're an everyday low price market leader. They make a promise and they leverage that promise to create space between them and the regionals. They already enjoy a 10% gap, if not more. In some cases, it's 15 to 20%. And we're just talking regional grocers. We're not talking independents. So they already enjoy a massive gap. And it's not to their benefit to mark up online because of some of the realities they have with the fact that they can monetize retail media unlike anyone else. And that can subsidize a lot of these decisions that the regional grocers don't have as much monies to help offset that. So there's that. I think the other reality is that we know today that we've already reverted to pre-COVID behaviors, that the main driver motivating customers to shop online today is convenience. It's not cost. And there's a variety of ways we can test that and measure that. It's not to say people would be happy to know that they're paying almost twice as much for one of those items that I mentioned. But the fact is they are. So we would look at that as the behavior is an express manifestation of their true attitude. Their true attitude is, I'm shopping online because it's convenient. Now, if we told them that they were spending $2 more on an item that cost $2.99 in the store and they're paying $4.99 online, I'm sure they wouldn't be happy. But if they didn't know that, it would be implicit or an implied recognition that they weren't really focused on that. Because in the case of Amazon Fresh and a few other retailers, it's not that hard to know what the price in store is versus online. You don't have to go to the store to figure that out. And we've done it both ways. So it's that kind of insight to bring to action within the context of, okay, what is our strategy? And let's just remember, and we try to remind conventional grocers of this, that the primary reason people shop with a regional grocer or a conventional grocery store is not because you're the lowest cost provider. If that's the case, everyone would shop at Walmart or Aldi, but it's because you're conveniently located. So again, there's convenience there, right? It's not cost. So the trade-off historically, even in the physical shop, was convenience versus cost. Someone who wants to spend less money, they give up convenience because they have to drive twice as far to go to a store that's 3 times as big to get those prices, right? So we're simply introducing the notion of trade-offs into the retail strategy while making sure that it's aligned with a general strategic framework that a regional grocer would likely be pursuing. Now, it could vary, and how someone would do that is going to differ depending on their size and what they're doing with retail media or pick and pack efficiencies already. So it reflects that there are choices that still need to be made within that construct. It's just a different set of choices that we really haven't considered. And the fact is, when people thought Amazon Fresh was doing something groundbreaking, which they are, I've pointed out to people they're not the first, the second, or even the third grocer in the US. And I'm not saying there's only 3, but I'm just saying they're not in the first 3 that have been doing this. And it's been kind of demonstrated to be an effective approach that doesn't necessarily build ill will, but rather builds a more sustainable, sound strategy that allows you to offer value-added service that your customers appreciate, and they're willing to pay a premium for that.
I love when my groceries show up at my door.
Well, you clearly are focused more on the convenience of that, ease of shopping. And I know one aspect that you've shared before is that you like the idea that you can kind of build your cart over time, whether it's over a day or two, and then when you're ready, you complete the order and figure out when you're going to be home, and you push order. Other people like myself may not be as thoughtful in building a list, and then not as patient or able to stay around the house to wait for that, right? And for that reason, pickup will be more appealing to someone like me, or even in store. So I think there's enough use occasions or need states that online can solve or satisfy, similar to in store. But they're driven by different motivations, and that's what we're simply trying to remind people or reinforce to others, that understanding who your customer is important. Understanding how they shop when they shop with you online versus when they shop with you in store is equally important. And I think we've been thrilled to be able to provide that type of insight to the regional grocers, because they simply don't have access to, nor the resources to even do that type of ongoing work like the national retailers do.
Yeah, no, thank you, David. I have to know, what is your favorite weekly grocery item to get?
My favorite weekly grocery item, I'll have to say my Belvita cookies. They're actually, I think they're cracker biscuits. Belvita biscuits. They're
I'm a
my
hummus
little,
girl, to be honest with you.
yeah, they're my indulgent after dinner treat. A small single serve, four biscuits, and Dave's happy.
Well, David, I hope I did Mark proud today.
Well, I think you just have to do the audience proud, because if they're going to vote Mark off the island, you could be next. So I'm sure they will give you at least one thumbs up. Mark may be the one who doesn't, but shame on him.
Oh, well, I'm sure we'll see him back around soon. But
Well,
thank
we
you so
hope so.
much for another great recording.
That's good. I appreciate that, Emmy. Thank you very much.